In these tutorials, I'm going to show you how to make tuxedo. I'll show you how to make one with a tie, and then one with a bow tie and with pleats in the front, as well as how to make a vest that goes beneath the tuxedo jacket. So let's get started. So I've deleted everything except for these two shoulder pads, which are going to add some stiffness so the shoulders don't get lumpy. It will keep it stiff for the jacket and just give it a nicer shape there. And basically they're just shaped like that with some thickness in them, and then I select them and freeze them. Now this is not a very good method to use a pattern piece as a shoulder pad, and I recommend that you model one in your 3D modeling application and then bring it in with your model, because like this, if you wanted to animate him or change his pose, this is not going to work. You can't keep the shoulder pads frozen and they'd either fall off or be left behind. So create your shoulder pads in another program and then model your clothes here. Alright, so let's start by making the shirt. I'm going to make this shirt pretty skin tight to him, just because when we put the jacket on top, if there are many wrinkles in the shirt, it's going to make the jacket lump up and look like it's not smooth and nice like we want it to be, but lumpy and strange. So although in real life the shirts do usually have some more wrinkles, I'm going to make it tight, and of course you can just widen it and make it more wrinkly if you want. So I take my rectangular pattern tool, I'll click once, and I'll make the width 250 and the height 650. And then I'll take my split line tool and I'll split the line at 80 from the right. And then I'll put another point at 400 from the bottom. Then I'll take this point down slightly, curve this in, and take this down. And I'll also take this in a bit, curve this, and I'm also going to take the bottom point in to make it tighter. I'll take it in by 30, and then I'll select this, copy, symmetric paste it, select both together, copy and paste them. And in the back I don't want it to go in so much, so I'm going to lift it up and then reduce the curve. Segment sew the back together, the sides, and the top parts. And I'm also going to sew for the meantime the front together, although I'm going to change that. I'm going to flip them horizontally and then simulate. Then I'll select these shirt patterns and apply the shirt fabric, which is a white color with an R cotton cloth preset. And I still want it to be even tighter, so I'm going to take this point and this one, and then hold down Shift and take them in a bit more. And then here in the back I'm going to curve it a bit more, something like that. Now this part in the shoulders is standing up a bit too much, so I'm going to take this point and draw it down a bit. To get rid of these loose floppy material lump here in the front, I'm going to take this up a touch. And then to make it a bit tighter around here, I'm going to take this in a touch. Now the back is rather tight in his arms, so I'm going to select this whole part here and draw it down a bit. Alright, something like that, and you can play with it of course to make it wider, tighter, etc. Now I'm going to make the collar, and the collar I'm going to make the length of this, plus this, plus this, plus this to begin with. So I'll take my rectangular pattern tool, I'll click once, make the width 360, and the height 90. Ah yes, one thing I forgot before we do the collar, let's deactivate that in the meantime. We need to change the sewing here in the front, because I want this pattern piece to overlap slightly over that one, and then we can add buttons if we want. So to do that I'm going to take my split line tool, and I'm going to split the line here at 20, and the same thing on the top here, 20. And this part here doesn't need to have a curve in it, it can be straight. And then I'll take my internal line tool and start from this point up to this point. And then I'll segment sew here to here. And then if we want to make this part here look and feel a bit stiffer, like it's doubled or something, we can take our rectangular pattern tool, make the width 20 or whatever your width here is, and then the height whatever your height here is. So I'll do it 590. And since this side is on top, we have to sew it down to that one. So I'm going to segment sew to here, and then free sew from here up to here. And then it appears to be thicker. Since in this shirt I'm going to make the long tie, we're not going to see any buttons, so we don't have to make them necessarily unless you wanted to. But for the next shirt, when I show you how I make pleated lines on it and a bow tie, then I'm going to add some buttons. Now for the collar, I'm going to zoom up close here. Then I'm going to take my internal line tool, and somewhere around here, I'm going to hold down Shift and make an internal line. I'll set the fold strength to 100 and the fold angle to 0. Then I'm going to take my segment sewing tool, and holding down Shift, I'm going to segment sew to here, to here, to here, and then to here. And then I'll take my edit sewing tool, and then only on this side, I'm going to take that red seam, and I'm going to extend it across. Not here, because this goes underneath the other one, and if we would make it go up to the edge, it would cause a mess. So even if you don't have a segment point here, and you didn't segment sew but you free sewed or segment sewed it the whole length, make sure that this part here, which goes underneath the other one, does not have any sewing to the collar. Activate, flip horizontally, and then simulate. So what that folding line here does, as you can see, it makes it stand up and then fold down. And it's a bit too tight, so I'm going to make it a bit wider. And a touch wider. Something like 400. And then for this particular design, for the bow tie it's a bit different, but for this one with the tie that comes down, I want these parts to sew together. So I'm going to take my free sewing tool and sew this part here together. Then I'm going to give it some more thickness, reduce the particle distance to 10, and put the shirt color fabric onto it. I'm also going to make sure that this extends to the very end here. Now as you can see, most tuxedos, they have a collar that's sort of pointed, not rounded like ours. So to achieve that, I'm going to take my curve tool, and I'm going to curve it up from the center like this. And there you can see it's already more pointed and less rounded like a shirt collar. Now depending exactly where you put the line, you can get different effects. If we put it up higher, you can see that it's coming down lower, the collar, it's not so high in his neck. And if we moved it down lower, it would make the collar rise up higher. You can also control the shape and angle of this part here by moving this point. You see if we move it in more, it's going to be more open like that. And if we move it out more, it's going to be much more closed. Alright, so in the next tutorial I'm going to make the tie. One last thing, I'd like this shirt to be even tighter against him, and when I drag it down it's nice, but then it keeps rising up again. So to keep cloth from rising up after you pull it down, go into the physical properties and raise the friction. And if you raise it really high, then it sort of clings to the avatar and it doesn't move too much. I think I need to curve this a bit more. Now because I made the collar a bit wider than the shirt, when we look from the side we can see it's sticking out in the back, and that's not very nice. So first of all, I think it could be a tiny bit tighter in the back, so I'm going to take this line, holding down Shift, I'm going to bring it in, and then I'm going to shrink this a bit. And there it's sitting nicer in his neck. Now in the front there seems to be a problem. For some reason it keeps shaking and jittering. And the reason for that is that the sewing is almost touching this internal line. And if we move it down just even one tiny little bit, it stops shaking. But then if you come very close, you can see it has a tiny opening there. Though it's hard to see, but if it's exactly where the seam is, for some reason, it does that. It didn't do that before, so maybe it won't do that by you. Alright, and now let's move on to the next tutorial where we create the tie.